The Saints announced Ronald Curry is gone pecan. He is headed to Buffalo. We are here off the bench overtime. We are reacting, listening. T-Bob Hebert talking about the moving and shaking, the moving pieces with the Saints assistant coaches. Klint Kubiak, I'll give him this, or I guess really it's Mickey Loomis right now. Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen are clearing house. I mean, it is nobody left for the last couple of years, which is exactly what we want. We will get into that in this video. Here we go.
Kubiak coaching in the Super Bowl and not yet officially taking the Saints OC job. The Cliff Kingsbury thing is making me pee a little. Of course, Cliff Kingsbury was on the inside track to be the Oakland Raiders offensive coordinator. Reportedly, contract talks break down on Saturday, and then Sunday, he becomes a Washington Commanders OC.
A lot of pieces to that. Okay, so first of all, it's insane how much Eric Bieniemy has fallen. I mean, Eric Bieniemy's stock 2 years ago, people were advocating, really advocating for him to be a head coach. And I had heard at the time that he did not interview well. I heard that when it came to the head coaching vacancies, it just, he just wasn't the guy. And a lot of people couldn't believe it. A lot of people couldn't believe that seemingly the architect of the Kansas City Chiefs offenses wasn't getting a nod to be a head coach. I mean, we see assistant coaches and coordinators get head coaching jobs after 1 year, 2 years of success. Bieniemy was having like a big part of the dynasty, right? And so now that he goes to Washington, and that was, I think the reason he goes to Washington was to try and separate himself from Kansas City, to prove it's not just KC, it's not just Patrick Mahomes, it's not just Andy Reid. He can do it on his own. Failed spectacularly. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not going to say it's the same as Pete Carmichael, but it is similar where when you have an offense and you have an offensive head coach and you've got a Hall of Fame quarterback, you got to be really careful of who you're giving credit to. Bieniemy was given a lot of credit just because he was the OC. No one really knew what he did besides that. And, that same thing could happen to, or has happened with Pete Carmichael and Josh McDaniels, and it's happened a million times where they just pluck a coordinator from a successful team, assume they're doing the most, and then they go somewhere else and fail. The other part of the Kingsbury conversation is that Caleb Williams is from that area. Caleb Williams is from the Washington area. I think he might be from Maryland. Kingsbury was his OC at USC. So people are thinking maybe he's going to Washington. Washington is trying to make a play for Williams, moving up to draft him, which if I'm the Chicago Bears, best case scenario. Best case scenario, I just trade a spot down, let them take Williams, I take Drake May. Perfect. That would be a perfect spot for Chicago. So a lot of moving pieces with Kingsbury and all these OCs, and leaves Oakland kind of in the dust. Or Las Vegas, I guess. Las Vegas in the dust, excuse me.
It feels like those contract talks probably broke down because of the Commanders' offer coming in after the Raiders one. And it's a fair point in that nothing is ever done until it's done.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's not possible, but I do think it's highly unlikely that anybody but Klint Kubiak will be the Saints' next offensive coordinator. And
yeah, I mean, if we're talking about that, I think that's pretty much locked up. I mean, I don't want to, again, like anything can happen, sure, but from what I'm hearing, Kubiak's the OC. Like, Kubiak will be the OC. I'm filming this on a Wednesday. He'll be the OC in a week. It'll be official. Ink will be on the paper. So if you're stressing about that, I would not stress about Klint Kubiak going somewhere else.
It's because of days like yesterday where you can see even more moves made to go ahead and accommodate Klint, right? Clearly the camps are already talking, have already had, again, the deal is agreed to in principle, right? Pen has to be put to paper. What that means is they've already kind of got ideas about what he's going to want to do when he comes in, and that's why you get the news yesterday that Ronald Curry is out as.
I don't know. Weird phrasing. I'm not sure if that's the case. I think Ronald Curry is out because he's not the OC. I think Ronald Curry expected to be the OC, maybe even expected to be the OC after Pete's first year. He gets passed up for, and Pete has a second year. He never gets play calling duties. We talked about that during the season. Should Curry get play calling duties? Should we see what we have there? I thought yes. It's a win-win situation. And I think now that he's passed up again for a 36-year-old coordinator, he's probably thinking, okay, well, if I want to be a coordinator, if I want to be an OC, I got to go somewhere else. I have to get out of, there's no upward mobility here for me if Klint Kubiak is the OC, unless Klint Kubiak becomes the head coach and then I become the OC, which is a big ask. So totally understand. And he's probably thinking, I go to Buffalo, Joe Brady becomes a head coach pretty soon, and then I can be the OC at Buffalo. That's probably his line of thinking. So I think Curry's decision to leave is much more because he didn't get the OC and much less about Klint Kubiak not wanting Curry on the staff. You got to remember, Klint Kubiak is about to coach in the Super Bowl. Klint Kubiak's focus is on the 49ers. So Klint Kubiak probably hasn't even had the opportunity to really talk to Mickey Loomis or talk to whoever about, the assistants he wants or the scheme he wants or what his vision is. They probably did that in the interview process or whatever, to the extent that was. But I don't think he's, and I might be wrong. I never am, but I might be wrong. But Kubiak, I think, is way more focused on the 49ers right now than on the chess pieces with the Saints.
Quarterbacks coach in New Orleans. And again, we should have mentioned this immediately after the Underhill interview, because he led us there with a flaming spotlight, did all but say that. And it makes sense, right? You're a new OC. Chances are you're going to want your own quarterback coach in there. And it's in keeping with something that we talked about. And I've seen some of the reaction online, and some of it's kind of like, whatever, it is what it is. But I've seen quite a bit of frustration as well. And
frustration with what? The Curry leaving? I can't wait to hear this.
I get it. Curry was a fan favorite, a player.
Here's my response. Two-part response. When I heard Ronald Curry was going to Buffalo, here's my two-part response. Who? And then cares. That's the two-part response. Guys, who cares if Ronald Curry is going to Buffalo? Fan favorite? What? From who? The Curry family? Like, who is hanging a poster of Ronald Curry on their wall? We're talking about the quarterback coach of a team that has greatly disappointed the last couple of years. We want a complete overhaul. We want a complete cultural shift. We want a complete identity shift. We want to get younger. We want to get new ideas. We want to evolve. We want all this stuff. All that's happening. So who in the world is sitting there saying, man, it's just not the same old Saints without Ronald Curry and Doug Marrone? Get them up out of there. Get them up out of there. Anybody of the past regime, see you later. Gone. Give them a gift card on the way out to Smalls, the Drew Brees' new slider restaurant. Get them gone. I haven't seen any frustration. To me, when I saw it, it was borderline news, barely even, honestly. Barely even news, but borderline news. But never in a million years did I think, this is kind of a questionable decision here. I wanted a full-scale revamp. I wanted a full-scale overhaul. I want a new chapter. And we're all in. I love it. I tweeted it out. I love it that we're going to all in with this. And if we fail, we fail. It is what it is. It's not a guarantee to succeed. But I don't like the little dipping your toes in the shallow end. If we want a fresh start, if we want to start this new chapter of New Orleans Saints football, let it rip. Let's start anew. Let's get some new stuff going on in here. No reason to hang on to anything from the past that wasn't working or that isn't vital. That's where I come down on this.
Favorite. But as we told you, I think last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago, these are the exact type of decisions that I was talking about when I said that there would be choices made that would chafe because they are made to improve a situation that you fundamentally disagree with. Like if you fundamentally disagree with the heavy investment in Allen and by extension Carr and having to make him work, well, then all of these are going to frustrate you because every offensive decision is going to be made with that idea.
That has nothing to do with this either. Like, guys, we have to, the investment in Dennis Allen, here's a spoiler alert, guys. If Dennis Allen is struggling or fails or, we start off 2-4 or 0-6 or it doesn't work out, he's gone. This is how it happens. Coordinators get fired. Everyone gets fired. They take the blame. Head coach survives. Head coach gets a chance. And then if he fails, he's gone. And then we're bringing in somebody else. Derek Carr, we signed Derek Carr last year. We restructured the contract, which had to happen, which is not a big deal either. Restructured the contract, so we have Carr for 1-2 more years. That's it. If Carr fails, this Kubiak thing is not a direct hire for Carr. If we would have got Mike Sullivan, if we would have got John Gruden, if we would have got someone like that, then you could say, man, we are really leveraging a lot of decisions here to support Carr. Kubiak is not a hire that is strictly to support Carr. Obviously, he will. He's an offensive coordinator. He is there to make Carr look good, sure. But he's not hired strictly because of Carr. If Carr fails and in 2 years Carr's gone and Kubiak is proven to be a good OC, Kubiak's going to remain and he's going to have an opportunity to start with somebody new. I think the Saints have done a perfect balancing act between the investment in Carr, the belief in Allen for at least another year, but not making too many crazy decisions to try and support those two. If we would have hired Sullivan or Gruden, I would have not been happy about it because I would have said we are putting way too much in this basket. Carr is not 22. He's not 23 years old. He's not Bryce Young. We don't have a first-round pick into this guy. We don't need to be doing all that. He is a 33-year-old, 10-year vet. We do not have him for that long in the grand scheme of things. So if we would have done that, if we would have got David Carr and brought him on as a quarterback counsel, and we would have got Mike Sullivan, and we would have got Derek Carr's cousin to work the cotton candy stand, like if we would have started doing that, then okay, sure. But Kubiak has nothing to do with trying to coddle Carr. I don't. These are completely isolated decisions
of trying to maximize Carr, and I think that's right. Even if, let's say I don't agree, even though I still think there is a little more wiggle room here than maybe I felt midway through the season last year. But even if Carr is not the guy, in your opinion, once you let's say you're on that staff and you're like, I don't think he's the guy, but you get shouted down and you're like, well, whatever, you get the directive from your boss. We have to forge ahead with Derek Carr as the centerpiece. Well, then you have to change your brand. Okay, then how do we do that? And how you do that is going out and hiring a guy like Klint Kubiak. And then how do you try to ensure that he is successful in a year in which you have to have it? You allow him to become the head coach of the offense. You allow him to pick his staff. That's why Doug Marrone is out at O-line. That's why Ronald Curry is out at quarterbacks coach. So again, I know that he was.
I think they're out because it wasn't working. I don't think they're out because Kubiak is saying, how can I maximize Carr? Oh, I know. Get rid of Curry, get rid of Marrone. I think the reason they're out is because they weren't offering anything to this puzzle. We're trying to solve a puzzle. We're trying to push the Saints, or Mickey Loomis is trying to push the Saints through the next chapter of their legacy. We're trying to succeed. They're trying to win games, win division, win NFC, win Super Bowls. They're trying to do all that. I think now Mickey took a hard look in the mirror, and good for him. This all happened within 2 seasons. Within 2 seasons, he realized, okay, this ain't working. Trying to hold on to the Sean Payton era with a bunch of people who were around the program, or around each other, or maybe some ideals are left over. Maybe we can grow. He gave up on that. This is a sign of him saying, we're done. We're done with that. We're done with all those ideals, all that culture, and good for Mickey to not stick to that, because earlier this season, he gave quite a few interviews where he said things like, we want to keep everything within. We believe we have the right people in the building. We don't believe in change. We believe in keeping things cohesive and keeping that core. And then, all of that talk. And that talk right there told me they'll probably promote Curry. They'll probably keep the same assistants. They'll probably keep the same players. They'll probably try and roll everything back next year and see what happens. He's not doing that. And I give him full credit, full marks for this. As of right now, and granted, we're only, a month into the offseason, but as of right now, I'm ecstatic with what Mickey Loomis has done. Absolutely ecstatic. I'm happy about Carmichael going. I'm happy about all the assistants going. I'm happy about Carr's restructure. I'm happy about Kubiak's hire. Out of everybody we could have got, I think we got a great guy. I'm happy about the whole thing. I really am. Yeah, sure. If it could have been better, like if we would have got fired Allen, got Mike Vrabel, got Kubiak, get Bieniemy as quarterback coach, get Belichick as defensive coordinator. Like, yeah, if we're cherry picking the greatest possible scenario, but in a realistic vacuum where, you know, Allen was going to stick around, where you know we kind of knew what would happen, I think things have played out perfectly. So I mean, I have a smile on my face every day with the decisions that have been made so far in the offseason. And hopefully, once Kubiak puts pen to paper and we hear some interviews with him and we hear his vision and all of that and we get closer to the draft, hopefully these good decisions continue.
He was a fan favorite. I know that it could be frustrating because you may believe that all of these moves are investing in something that is already lost. But I think we can agree that, like, it's still better to go all in on some, like, it's the old mantra of it's better to have 11 guys doing the wrong thing than 10 guys doing the right one and one guy doing the wrong, right? It gives you a better chance of success if everybody's on the same page, moving in the same direction. In fact, I think that's kind of one of the core problems of the Saints of last year, and it's something that is probably going to lead to some of your favorite players leaving. We mentioned it, the kind of cultural rift that seems to be appearing within this New Orleans organization. Like, if DA's going to make the playoffs and going to work out and trying to be, well, you might have to force some guys out that don't believe in him. And that sucks if you think that DA's not the guy, no matter what, but it probably does represent the best path to maximizing whatever DA in this current regime can be, which doesn't appear to be a very high ceiling, but
again, I'm just not seeing a lot of these. I'm not seeing a lot of this. I mean, if Mickey Loomis comes out and say, "Look, we're all in on Dennis Allen, and because of that, we're getting rid of Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, all the Tyrann Mathieu. We're getting rid of all these people because they do not like Dennis Allen." I would think that was insane, but I don't think it's going to happen. Let me know in the comments below. What have we done that is this obvious investment into Carr? I really don't know. I'm racking my brain. Or even Allen. What is it? Because all we've done for Carr. What have we done for Carr? Foster Moreau? Is that it? Because again, Kubiak isn't a hire for Carr. It's a hire for the Saints. It's a hire for the future. He's 36 years old. This isn't a decision made to make Carr better. And we're not bringing in like Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller and Devontae Adams. We're not bringing those guys in. We're not creating an alternate jersey that's silver and black. Like, what have we really done that is solely based on insulating Derek Carr? We gave him a contract. We chose to make him our quarterback. It's a quarterback market. It's the NFL. You're going to pay top dollar for a quarterback. We got a relatively friendly deal to try Derek Carr out for 3-4 years. Could end up being 2 years. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I'm just not really seeing, ladies and gentlemen, if y'all hear anything as a parade is rolling through. I mean, having the studio basically on a parade route, in hindsight, not a great decision.
There's only one way to find out, and that's to go for it. And the Saints are clearly showing you that you are. For Ronald Curry, I mean, Sean Payton already tried to prime away last year. Would not be surprised at all if he ends up in Denver. I do think it's a bit of a bad break for Curry from a timing perspective, right? More ideal would have been to be released maybe at the beginning of the offseason, and then when all these tons of jobs were opening up, you would have been a candidate maybe for OCs, maybe for other quarterback jobs. Whereas now, who knows, maybe you get forced into more of like a shadow staff type of situation. But Curry out in New Orleans, and it makes sense because, well, you got a new OC, and you're going to let him create the offense in his image. Taylor, you were mentioning that you have some potential candidates to look forward to.
Yeah, so your quarterback's coach now is gone in Ronald Curry, a guy who was
I've heard, and someone double-checked me on this, I think Kubiak's younger brother might be a coach on the 49ers staff. I've heard potentially he could be. Obviously, people have floated around the idea of Brian Greasy following him in the same kind of role. That would be sweet. That would be awesome to get two people from that staff. But I haven't heard too many names as of right now on the next quarterback coach. I would think it's going to be a really, really tight fit with Kubiak. Like whoever it is going to come in and basically be a disciple of Kubiak. It's going to be someone who comes in and says, yep, okay, I will adhere to this system. I will adhere to this philosophy. I will adhere to those ideals, which is why, the title of this video is Former Chiefs OC a Possibility. I'd be stunned if Eric Bieniemy wanted this job, was available for this job, or took this job, because it's a demotion to go from OC to quarterback coach. But then also, he's a guy who's trying to push his vision. He's a guy who's trying to push his ideas, his vision, his plan, his strategy. He's not trying to say, I'll forget all that and I'll just do whatever Kubiak wants. Like Eric Bieniemy still, I'm sure, still believes he should be a head coach, still believes he should be an OC. So I don't think that would be nuts. It was the same thing with like Josh McDaniels. It'd be crazy if McDaniels, someone like that. I'm not saying exactly Josh McDaniels, but once you get in that world of OC, head coach, you have your own vision, you have your own thing you're trying to sell, you're trying to push. The second you go backwards, the second you say, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm not pushing my vision, I'm not pushing whatever, then you kind of ruin any leverage you may have had.
Well respected in that building, but you're obviously going to let Kubiak come in, hire his own staff. What about Klint Kubiak, his brother?
That's
he was
his
the assistant
brother.
quarterbacks coach at the 49ers.
Yeah.
That's an option as well. Brian Greasy. Would Brian Greasy come and make a lateral move?
I'm 2 for 2 right now. I'm 2 for 2 right now on these people. I think both of those make sense, like especially Clay. If Clay was the assistant quarterback coach and Klint is going, it would make sense that Klint brings Clay to be, the quarterback coach. That makes perfect sense to me, and I would have no objection to that at all. I would be fine with that. I'd be fine with Greasy too.
The current 49ers QB coach. Now, that one's a little bit difficult because you would think he would probably get elevated within the 49ers system, maybe to that passing game coordinator role where Kubiak was.
Yeah, Greasy doesn't make as much sense because, like this young fella just said, he'll probably just stay in that system. Why would you leave the Kyle Shanahan coaching world? Just keep getting elevated. All of a sudden, the higher up you go for a team like San Francisco, the faster the track is to an OC job or a head coaching job somewhere else. So, yeah, this opens a door for Greasy at San Francisco. So I don't think he would leave.
And are you going to move, from the stability of being a part of the Kyle Shanahan regime to the 1-year chips to the center of the table situation that you see in New Orleans? That's.
I have to keep, every time I hear this, I have to keep reiterating. This is not a chips all-in, middle-of-the-table hire with Klint Kubiak. A chips all-in, middle-of-the-table hire would have been John Gruden because he's got ties to Carr. He's not young. He's not developing. He is who he is. You know what you're getting. It's a quick, short tenure. If you were to hire Gruden, it is strictly for Carr. It's strictly to maximize Carr. It's strictly for a couple of years, and then he's out. So this is like the opposite. This is the opposite of all-in chips in the middle of the table. You're taking a relatively young, or definitely young, but relatively inexperienced offensive coordinator, relatively inexperienced play caller, and you're hiring them to, make the offense better, but also to kind of grow on their own, to also develop on their own at 36 years old and see what they can do. So it's the opposite. We could have done what he's saying. We could have went all in. We could have put all our chips in the middle of the table and said we're going to live and die with the next 2 seasons. And we could have got John Gruden or Mike Sullivan, someone with Derek Carr ties, someone who's established, someone who's older, someone who's not looking to jump around or any of that stuff. So again, shouts to Mickey Loomis for not doing that. Shouts to him for not going all in and saying, you know what, I'll completely forego the future for the next 2, 3, 4 years with a Gruden or a Sullivan or whoever. There's a lot of foresight with the Kubiak hire, because if Kubiak is good, if he works out, theoretically, he'll be here way longer than Derek Carr will. He is not tied to Carr. It's like Deion Sanders in Colorado. He's tied to his kids there. Once his kids are gone, Deion Sanders will leave Colorado. You can write that down, right? I mean, you heard it here first. The second Shedeur and that group graduates, he's gone. That is a short-term hire. That is putting your chips all in the middle of the table. That is going all in and tying yourself to a couple players or a player. That's not what this is at all. Not whatsoever.
That's a tough one.
This one's not likely. It's just fun to talk about, okay? It's a pipe dream one, T-Bob. What about Eric Bieniemy? Eric Bieniemy is unemployed right now. It doesn't look like he's going to get the Seattle Seahawks OC job. It looks like that's going to be Chip Kelly. They've interviewed him multiple times. All other spots are pretty much full. He's a guy that the market has staled on a little bit. The offense wasn't great in Washington. They had a lot of yards, but similar to Pete Carmichael's offense, like in between the 20s, they were great. They weren't great in the red zone. Yeah. I mean, they had 19.4 points per game. They had 18.9 before he got there, so not a huge jump. Now, was it all his fault? No. I mean, he had Sam Howell at quarterback. Like, what are you going to do? But, I mean, that's a guy who is looking for a job, who's been known as how well he can coach the quarterbacks. I don't think he would take the role, but if all offensive coordinator positions gets taken, he's a man without a job.
I think he sits. I think he sits a year if no roles are available. I think he sits, and I think he finds a way to go back to Kansas City, whether that's in a assistant play caller position, assistant they can always make something up, because Andy Reid likes him. I think he could go back there, get some more reps in, let the market settle, let everything relax, maybe fix whatever problems he has in the interview process or why he's not getting looked at for head coaching and offensive coordinator roles. That's where I would go. I'd go right back. I'd go right back to KC, and I think he will, unless some magic role opens up with another team and they're desperate enough to just bring him on. But I don't think there's any. To me, this is further than a pipe dream. This is further of a pipe dream than any. It is not based in reality at all to have Eric Bieniemy be a quarterback's coach. And I'll tell you this: if we somehow did pull this off, man, what a offseason to go from Pete Carmichael to who's wandering around in the parking lot, just lost out there, to go from that to Klint Kubiak, Eric Bieniemy, people like that on the same staff, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would love Eric Bieniemy. It seems crazy that he would be a quarterback's coach at this point, but
he will not be.
I don't know. I don't exactly. I don't understand what chafed the players so badly in Washington that the Kansas City players love so much.
See, I've heard different. I've heard they didn't like Bieniemy. I've heard Bieniemy is very hard on players. I've heard he's very hard on players, very demanding, kind of an in-your-face, demanding guy at practice. I don't think he was well received at Kansas City, and I certainly don't think he was well received in Washington. And Bieniemy is a perfect storm too. Washington's in a situation where Ron Rivera gone, like they're changing the guard, they're changing all kind of stuff. Ownership has changed. They're potentially getting you would think they're getting a new quarterback. So they're doing kind of the same things the Saints are, where anything from the past that doesn't have to be kept, they're going to get rid of. They're starting a new chapter too. So no reason to keep Bieniemy around. I think Bieniemy could, the way that football works now, he would be interesting to go to the college ranks. Like for him to go be the OC at USC, or for him to go be the OC at Colorado or Alabama or somewhere like that. We see this all the time where a failed coach, the Bill O'Briens of the world, or even the Lane Kiffins of the world, they fail in the pros, and then they kind of hang out for a second, then they reappear in college as a coordinator, their teams have success, and then boom, they're right back to a head coaching job or back to the pros. So Bieniemy, that would be interesting. I think if he, like a team like Colorado, a team where it's plug in, just you don't have to develop too much. They're there, team's there, all chips in the middle of the table. That'd be interesting.
Because remember, there were all the reports that maybe he was almost like too tough or too hard on these players in Washington. And then you had guys like Tyreek Hill coming out and basically saying like I love that. Like he's the guy who made us who we were through that. So yeah, if the market makes it so that Eric Bieniemy is your quarterback coach, that would feel like a massive win.
Yeah, that'd be
for
nuts.
sure. Even though I would feel for Bieniemy a bit that this kind of fall has continued.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that about like they thought he was too tough. You could say, well, you know, that's been a soft organization. They've underperformed for years. But then you hired Dan Quinn, who's known as that hard-nosed, defensive-minded coach. One of the first moves he makes is like, we're not going with Eric Bieniemy. I'm bringing in Cliff Kingsbury, who's more sizzle than steak, if you will. You know, he's a younger, less hard-nosed coach. So it was a weird, maybe it just wasn't a good fit in Washington.
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, as of right now, the only team that I've heard even as close to a fit for Bieniemy in his entire career has been Kansas City. And you got to wonder, like, how much of that is because he's with Andy Reid, like potentially the greatest coach to ever live. You know, having that guy as the leader of a franchise, it can soften, you know, some questionable areas like a Bieniemy. Same thing with Peyton and Carmichael, where, you know, Carmichael didn't work without Peyton, and Bieniemy has certainly not worked with or even McDaniels and Belichick. Like, this really does happen all the time. It really does happen where, you know, a head coach and a coordinator just kind of work. They understand each other, and then the coordinator just can't do it on their own, can't exist. And then Bieniemy's situation can't even get a job.
Even long time. I mean, Ron Rivera was the one talking about it, and that's like a long time NFL coach. So Bieniemy, I don't know. It's impossible for me to understand the full breadth of the situation outside looking in. But that would definitely be a name. That probably after this though, that probably feels like Klint, right? He was assistant quarterback coach. Clay. Sorry.
Under Klint.
Yes.
They are brothers. He was the assistant QB coach
sense.
under Brian Griese in San Francisco. Obviously, the relation is there. He would be moving up a role, not a lateral role like Brian Griese. So that one makes the most sense.
I'm guessing Clay also spelled with a K.
It is.
There you go. Klint and Klint Kubiak. Wow.
I'll take it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below. Are you upset that Ronald Curry is gone? Have you removed your Ronald Curry fathead that you have on the wall? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.